Great. Good morning. It's Evan Kirstel here with Jen Stirrup of Data Relish and Dave Mariani of AtScale, two interesting people I've been following on Twitter for quite a few months. So it's nice finally to connect live, as it were, and in person. So good to see you.
It's great to finally meet you. And so it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me along.
Good to meet you too, Evan.
Thank you. Jen, you are the founder and CEO of Data Relish. Great name, by the way. I'd love to hear the backstory. But can you speak to us about your personal background and what the team you have built at Data Relish does exactly?
So my background originally was artificial intelligence, which I've been doing for over 20 years. So I'm finally cool. I've waited for a very long time to finally wake up to a world which is as excited about artificial intelligence as I am. So I moved in from AI into BI because it's a nice sequence. So at Data Relish, we offer business intelligence and AI services. We also produce lots of content. I'm mainly excited about helping leaders to be successful with artificial intelligence and business intelligence to help make their data work.
And what kind of clients do you work with? It must be quite diverse.
Absolutely. We work with businesses that are startups and sometimes global clients as well. So I'm very fortunate to work with customers who just come to us with their problems. We love to solve them and leave them with a good structure in place that they can rinse and repeat to continue their success.
Yeah, problem solving. I love that theme, particularly now with this new or next normal we're in. It's really about just solving problems with a day-to-day kind of focus.
Yes, and that's why I called the company Data Relish. I want people to relish the data. I want them to love it, not just see it as a problem, but something they can really use to push their business forward.
Wow, that's great testimonial. Love your data, even the bad data. We can even love that. So Dave, just shifting gears, you're the co-founder and chief strategy officer at AtScale, a company I'm just getting to know. Maybe you can share a bit about your personal background, how you came to AtScale, and your mission.
Great, thanks. I guess my story begins. Well, I've always been a data guy. So working in very early days, really where the AtScale story picks up is really when I was at Yahoo and I was running the analytics teams there back when the big data revolution was born. So as you know, Yahoo was the inventor of Hadoop. And so I had this huge cluster and huge amounts of data, big data at the time, and a lot of consumers who needed the data to make decisions. So I ran into the problem of how do I scale analytics to be able to allow my customers to self-serve and to be able to get access to all that data to make decisions without all the data movement and pipelines and my hundreds of engineers that spent all their days making big data small. So having had that experience at Yahoo, I decided just to start AtScale and found AtScale with a couple of other ex-Yahoos to really solve that problem. So the goal being to expose as much data, all the data that an enterprise will collect, but expose that data at its full fidelity, its full granularity to the business using whatever tools they want to use to consume that data. So rather than trying to build a whole nother vertical stack where we were trying to dictate what kind of visualization you would do and how you would do that, we basically built an engine that would expose data with a semantic layer, making it multidimensional and multidimensional powered so that customers could self-serve, but self-serve with governance and safety and consistency. And that's what I set out to do, and that's what we do at AtScale.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. And you must see a whole variety of customer scenarios. What's one of your favorite, let's say, use cases in this current environment, one that you're particularly proud of? I know you do a lot of work from e-commerce to healthcare.
Yeah, Evan, especially on the retail and e-commerce, they're just brick and mortar and e-commerce, because they're both now. Some really interesting stories out of Home Depot, who went from on-prem SQL Server analysis services to the Google Cloud with AtScale without losing any of the functionality of literally thousands of users, both internal and external, working with SKU level data to manage inventory and to manage sales. Similar situation with Wayfair, who again was stuck online with an analysis services OLAP infrastructure for thousands of users, but really needed to migrate to the cloud. And so we helped them get there without losing that functionality. And my favorite story is Matt Hartwig said it best. He said, if we didn't move to the cloud prior to COVID, we would be in a very different situation now, because it took so much effort and time to provision hardware on-prem, and their growth has exploded post-COVID, that they wouldn't be able to capture or keep up with that infrastructure demand, because literally their data workloads and query workloads and their data sizes are doubling every year. And so it's really, really great to know that we've helped them move to the cloud without losing all the functionality and disconnecting the business from that.
Yeah, that's so important. I've been amazed to see how some of these blue chip firms like Home Depot and Wayfair and others have managed to navigate this pandemic and the crisis around e-commerce and online shopping that's been created. And so there's a big gap now between the haves and the have-nots, those who have cloud and have data science expertise and those who don't. So it's become a real imperative to beef up in that area. So Jen, you and Dave will be presenting at a webinar coming up on identifying your most valuable customer, which is an interesting challenge given all the noise out there. Can you give a sneak peek as to what to expect, Jen?
Yes, I'm really interested in the reasons why, as an industry, customers are still struggling with their customer data, and they don't know what their customers look like. And as you touched on, in the time of crisis, this issue is more pressing than it's ever been. And we need to solve these problems. We need to do better as data scientists and people in the data industry. So this particular session really excites me. So I think what we do is we help organizations to start think about how they can solve the problem. So if you are a business decision maker and you just know that you have data all over the place and your customers are telling you things which don't resonate with what you see in the reports, we're going to help you to think about how to move towards a more customer-focused view when you start to look at the data. When I look at organizations, they often look at it in a very departmental way. So I'm excited that myself and the AtScale team are joining up to talk about this really important issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you're an Amazon with all the data infrastructure and expertise in-house, you know who your customers are and the most valuable ones, but what do the rest of us do collectively with all this data? Dave, anything particular looking forward to with the webinar?
Yeah, you just said it right there, Evan, is that for most organizations, data is coming from a million different directions. And so the question is that, you can get buried under that data such that you can't really put together that customer view to even figure out how to answer that question of who your most valuable customers are. So Jen and I are going to work together to show the audience just how you really leverage data virtualization to make use and expose and integrate all those different data sources to be able to answer the question of who is my most valuable customer.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there are going to be a lot of interesting deliverables and insights on this event. Why do you think today it's so difficult to identify those valued customers? I mean, even companies that you think would know their customers very well, like an Apple. You know, when I walk into the store most times, they're pretty clueless about who I am and what I need until there's quite a lot of information captured. You know, is this a you know, a mission that's achievable?
You know, I'll take that, and then Jen, I would love to hear what you think about it. But to me, there's two challenges. The first one is on the data integration side, is that how do you use all the data that you're collecting to be able to make it actionable? And the second part is what you also kind of referred to earlier in our discussion, which is data science. So how do you take that data scientist out of his silo or her silo and actually make those predictions available to the business such that they can make real decisions, like figure out who their best customers are? So it's all a data problem. It's bad data, and it's difficult to get data to that business user, to that data scientist, and then to actually use that data to create derived data to actually be able to answer the questions of who my most valuable customer is.
Wow, so we've gone from MVP to MVC. Jen, any most valuable customer, any thoughts as we close out the discussion?
Yes, I think it's so important. We need to understand what is meaningful to our customers so we can understand their needs better. And I think there's a real change in how customers relate to their suppliers, actually. They want a relationship. It's more than buying a product these days. And you can see that in social media. So some organizations, which I won't mention, can sometimes experience a snowstorm from social media when their customers are unhappy with them. And I'm sure you can think of examples of that. But the way I see that is, how can you work out what's meaningful to your customer if you're not customer focused and customer centric? And that really means your data as well. So I'm really excited about this webinar. I think we're tackling some really big problems that organizations don't always recognize that they have. And I think it's so important in this time of crisis to understand what's meaningful and purposeful for customers.
That's fantastic. As someone who's kind of a social media fanatic, it's fascinating to me how brands basically are annoying the social media data points and inputs, as far as I can tell. So if you are interested in hearing more from Jen and Dave, please join them for this live webinar, How to Identify Your Most Valuable Customer, using dozens of data sources. It's on November 19th. And you can also follow Jen on Twitter at Jen Stirrup and Data Relish. And you can also find Dave on Twitter with D. Mariani and AtScale, AtScale. And of course, I'm at Evan Kirstel. I look forward to attending the webinar and to sharing my thoughts. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to speak with you and finally meet you at last in person, Evan. And thank you for having me along, Dave and the team.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.